guys, it's Ellie, here's Ginny, and if you have been on the internet for any length of time, then you have probably heard of a little band called BTS. They have been taking the world by storm for the past couple years, and they have recently found their way into the booktube community as well, which is great for me because I have been following BTS as a group and kind of K-pop in general since about 2014, about a year after they debuted, and since then I was lucky enough to meet them in 2015 for a little event they did in Atlanta, and then also most recently, this past June, I got to go see them in concert. So it's been kind of crazy to see them taking over this booktube space because for a long time my bookish interests and my Korean culture interests did not collide at all, and now all of a sudden to see it doing that around every corner on book Twitter and on booktube alike. So it's really exciting for me to see those two interests kind of coming together and finding a similar space. So I thought today would be fun to kind of take that in stride and give you guys some book recommendations based on your bias in BTS. A bias, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the K-pop terminology, is basically just a fancy way of saying your favorite member. So I thought it would be fun to take my limited knowledge of BTS as individuals, since, you know, I don't know them personally, and also take my knowledge of books that I've read and have enjoyed, and try to pair them up in a way that makes sense and that will hopefully lead you to a new, interesting book. I don't believe anybody else has made this video. I've certainly seen other BTS-related booktube content, but I have not seen this exact idea done, so if somebody else has posted it and thought of it and done whatever, then I apologize, but I did not mean to steal your idea, and certainly our recommendations are not going to be exactly the same. So without further ado, let's get into these recommendations. Alrighty, Ginny, you need to get down now because it's too hot. This first recommendation is for all of you RM stands out there. RM is the leader of BTS and one of the three main rappers in the group. What kind of sets him apart from the rest of the group in terms of why I think a lot of people gravitate towards him is that he is very intellectual. He's also very poetic. His lyrics are usually a lot of plays on words and a lot of allusions to classical texts and things that he really vibes on. He's also like a genius. He's the one member of BTS that speaks fluent English, and he learned how to do that himself by watching Friends, the TV show. So he's kind of crazy smart, and I think that was my main motivator in choosing a book that I feel that both RM and RM fans would both appreciate. So I decided, of course, to go with a classic, and that is going to be A Separate Piece by John Knowles. This is a book that follows two, well, there's more characters in that, but mainly two boys who are going to an all-boys school in New England during the kind of right on the edge of World War II. Jean, who is our main POV character, is a very shy, intellectual type, and his roommate, Phineas, is a much more devilish, extroverted, handsome type. The story follows them through one summer right during the early years of World War II and kind of documents their loss of innocence, both from the perspective of the fact that World War II is on the rise. They're at an all-boys school, which means that a lot of their friends and other peers are being either drafted into the war or are voluntarily enlisting, and not only that, but there is certain aspects of youth and loss of innocence that have to do with Jean and Phineas's relationship in general, just within their own kind of friendly unit. It's one of my favorite books that I ever had to read for school, hence the reason why I bought my own copy of it. And not only that, but I think RM would really appreciate it and enjoy it as well. So if you are an RM fan, or if you are just somebody looking for a good classic to read, then I definitely recommend this one right here. Next is Jin, who is the oldest member of the group. He's also one of the vocalists. And I think what draws a lot of people to Jin specifically is how kind of shamelessly confident he is and how eager and willing he is to be the icebreaker in any kind of uncomfortable situation, whether it be through pulling one of his lines, like calling himself worldwide handsome or blowing a kiss to the camera, or if it's something more like telling a dad joke or a really bad pun. And those kind of things are his forte. He's really good at just seamlessly breaking the ice, usually by making fun of himself or by saying a joke that he knows will make everybody else make fun of him. So when I was choosing a book to go along with Jin, I was looking for something that was the same kind of shamelessly cheesy, just because it's fun to be cheesy sometimes type of book. And I ultimately landed on a book that I really personally enjoy and actually just recently reread, which is the Selection series by Kira Cass. This series is a YA dystopian that takes place in a world where class and what kind of job you can have is dictated by a number. So for example, our main character, America, is a number 5, which means that she and her entire family are only capable of being musicians. The number 1s are the royal family that are running this whole shindig, and the story begins when the prince decides to hold a selection, something that this royal family does whenever they need to find a spouse. The selection requires that eligible young women, if they so desire, can send in an application. The prince will choose those from random, and those people will then come to the palace, live like royalty, while the prince decides which one of those ladies he wants to marry. Yes, this is dystopian The Bachelor. People like to give this series hate, and I do understand that to a certain extent, but I also think that it exudes the same kind of cheesy just for the sake of being fun and entertaining vibe that Jin also gives off. So I think if you can understand and love Jin the way that he is, you might also be able to love this book for what it is as well. This next recommendation is for all of you Suga fans out there. Suga, aka Min Yoongi, is one of the 3 rappers in the group, and he also does a lot of production work for both BTS and for other Korean artists as well. In terms of stereotypes, Yoongi is kind of known as the distant one, the aloof one. He's not like the most cuddly one out of the bunch, obviously, and he's also known for having this kind of quiet kindness where he might not tell you outright that he loves you or is happy to see you happy or anything like that, but he clearly feels those things and expresses how he feels through his actions. So I wanted to find a book that had that same vibe or had a specific character that I felt represented that same kind of cold hard exterior but softy on the inside kind of thing, and ultimately I came up with this book, 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I absolutely adore this duology. It is a continuation of a universe, the Grishaverse, from a previous series that Leigh Bardugo wrote, but I came into 6 of Crows having not read any of those, and so I think it is very possible for you to do so as well if you have not read this series. This is a fantasy series that kind of teeters between young and new adult. My camera autofocus is getting distracted by all of the shiny lights, so I'm going to put this book down now. 6 of Crows follows a gang of 6 teenagers with vastly different personalities and talents, headed up by a boy named Kaz Brecker, who is the reason why I have chosen this book for you. If you want to talk about people who aren't very touchy-feely, Kaz Brecker literally wears gloves and never makes skin-to-skin contact with anyone else. He is ruthless and cold and everything you would expect a gang leader to be, but under that crime boss exterior, he has a very loyal and deep connection to each of the other members of his little gang. Kaz is the king of saying mean things to people and then proving he feels exactly the opposite through his actions. So I'm hoping that those of you who love Yoongi for that in real life will also love it in this book. Moving on to JHope, who is the 3rd and final rapper of the group. He is also one of the primary dancers. JHope is known for a lot of things, but most commonly his very bright and bubbly personality. He leans very hard into the hope aspect of his name, trying to be this kind of rallying point and positive source of energy for both the group members and for the fans as well. In honor of that, and for all of you who are drawn to that kind of energy, I wanted to choose a book that had that same kind of really bright and bubbly personality to it. Obviously, every book is going to have some kind of conflict. It's not going to be happy all the time, but there are books that, more so than others, just kind of maintain a happier mentality throughout. So for you JHope fans, I have chosen a YA contemporary called Geekarella by Ashley Poston. Geekarella is, as you might be able to tell by the name, a geeky spin on the Cinderella fairy tale. The story follows our protagonist, Elle, who is a huge fan of this classic sci-fi show called Starfield, which she got into thanks to her dad, who was so obsessed with the show that he even started a convention about it. This is a Cinderella retelling, however, so unfortunately her father does pass away, but her love for this classic sci-fi show continues on. Some years down the line, Starfield is set to be rebooted, and there is going to be a cosplay contest that will allow the winner to go meet the new lead actor of the show in person at a cosplay ball. Our Prince Charming is Darian, an actor who has always actually loved this show himself and is now playing his dream role of the lead star commander in this show. But teen heartthrob that he is, a lot of people see him as just another pretty face and don't take his love for the show seriously. When he finds a fan of the show's blog account talking about him and his casting and the show in general, he is intrigued, and the two begin correspondence, neither of them knowing who the other is. And so the adventure begins. Those of you who follow my channel know that I love me a good retelling, and this is about as good as it gets. I feel like it is just such a happy, cheesy, cute little story, and it is so tied into the original fairy tale of Cinderella while adding this new love letter to geek culture aspect that I just really enjoy as a geek myself. So it was just a perfectly happy, bubbly read, and I think that those of you who are fans of JHope's positive energy will also appreciate the positive energy in this book as well. Next up is Park Jimin, and this is somebody who was very hard to choose a single book for because of the reason why I think a lot of people gravitate towards him. Jimin is kind of known for having this double personality. On one hand, he's very soft and sweet, and then on the other hand, he's very like hardcore and like goes at it. It was hard to find a book that kind of replicated this idea of one side being soft and squishy and sweet and then the other side being very hardcore. But I ultimately decided to go with a book series that I feel represents at least that aspect of alter egos and showing different sides of yourself in different contexts. And that one, of course, was going to be a superhero book, so I went with Renegades by Marissa Meyer. This series follows Nova, who is one of the bad guys. She is an anarchist, she has the ability to not sleep, ever, and additionally, she can make other people fall asleep just simply by touching them. She usually masquerades as Nightmare, one of the anarchists, but she is asked to go undercover as one of the good guys, the Renegades, to get some inside information. She is accepted into the Renegades undercover and begins to work as part of a unit led by a different character in the story named Adrian, who has the ability to make the things that he draws come to life. Little does everyone else know, however, including Adrian's dads, the two most powerful superheroes in the Renegades entirely. Adrian has created himself a supersuit, which he calls the Sentinel, that he wears to go outside of the Renegade rulebook and go on his own revenge plot to find the person who killed his mother. This is a story all about alter egos and peeking behind enemy lines, because Adrian and Nova might like each other quite a lot, but the Sentinel and Nightmare are arch enemies. So maybe it's not quite the same thing as Jimin going from soft boy to badass in 0.2 seconds, but it's similar enough, and I really enjoy this book, so I wanted to recommend it anyway. Next on the list is V, also known as Kim Tae-hyung, who is one of the main vocalists of the group, and it was a little bit difficult to find a book to recommend for him as well. Depending on where on the timeline you came into the BTS fandom, you might have different first impressions of V because they have definitely changed over time. When I first came into BTS around 2014, he was kind of known as the crazy one, the one who was 4D or an alien. He even used to like talk in an alien language to himself or on variety shows, but he made it pretty clear that he was not really happy with that nickname or that kind of archetype being put upon him because it made it seem like he was strange or weird just for being himself. So since then, his image has changed a lot, leaning a lot more on fashion and acting, both things that he does and is very interested in, rather than being this kind of crazy, wacky, zany guy. But one thing that I think has remained consistent with V from start to now is that he has always had a very, very close relationship with his family. So for Tae, I wanted to find a book where family was a significant theme, and specifically one that has a large family unit that is all close together, where hopefully one of the characters would do anything for their family. And I found one. Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare is a young adult urban fantasy which follows Emma Carstairs, a shadow hunter, which basically means that she is mostly human but has a little bit of angel blood that allows her to not only see but also fight demons and other supernatural beings like vampires and werewolves and fairies and all of that. Emma lives in Los Angeles with the Blackthorn family, including her best friend, Julian. The Blackthorn family has been through some hard times, and so Julian is basically running the family, even though he is pretty much just a teenager himself. So when a mysterious antagonist is out looking for Blackthorn blood, Emma and Julian have to fight together to keep the rest of the Blackthorn safe. I will say, for those of you who don't know, while this is the first book in a series, it is part of a larger book universe, the Shadowhunter Chronicles by Cassandra Clare. So there are a lot of references and characters in these books that are initially from other older series. However, I do think it's possible for you to just kind of get a recap from looking on the interwebs, seeing who these characters are that we're talking about here, and being able to move on from there, because most of the story is with Emma and Julian and doesn't have much to do with the background characters. It's just a perk to know who it is that they're talking about. And honestly, I couldn't think off the top of my head of another story that has the same kind of family dynamic as this one, at least not in recent memory. And finally, my recommendation for the youngest member of BTS, Jungkook. Do you like how I said I had no bias and then somehow I only own the pop figure for Jungkook? It's true though, I promise. Jungkook is the maknae, aka the youngest member of BTS, and he is often referred to as the golden maknae because he seems to be good at everything he tries. However, that was a difficult thing for me to try to create a book recommendation on because that in books is called a Mary Sue, and we don't usually like those. So instead, I turned to a different aspect of Jungkook's personality, which is that he, at least until recently, was a gamer. Jungkook is known to have a pretty crazy gaming setup, and so I wanted to find a book that kind of felt like something not only Jungkook Stans would like, but that Jungkook himself would probably enjoy, which is why I chose for Jungkook and Jungkook fans alike the Warcross duology by Marie Lu. This is Wildcard. I have Warcross on my Kindle, but I felt like it would be better to hold up an actual book. This duology is a young adult sci-fi / dystopian that takes place in a world where everyone essentially wears little mini VR headsets that run a program called Warcross, which is both a game and an augmented reality system. Mika Chen is a young girl living in this world trying to make ends meet by being a bounty hunter for people who have done something illegal through the Warcross system. Not only that, but she is a very skilled hacker and she uses her abilities to her own benefit, both in her job and in her personal life. One of her attempts goes haywire, however, when she is trying to get in to see a tournament of Warcross, the actual game, being played, but instead accidentally glitches herself right smack dab into the center of the tournament as it is being live broadcast to everyone in the world. Mortified, Amika gets out of there as soon as she can, but not before the creator of Warcross, Hideo Tanaka, has taken notice of her and sends word that he wants to meet her. And so the adventure begins. This book was honestly the easiest one for me to pick out of the lot because I just am so confident that Jungkook himself would appreciate this book that I feel that Jungkook stans would also feel the same way. And those are all 7 of my BTS bias recommendations. I hope that this has given you some more books to read, and if not, then let me know what you would have recommended for each of the different members instead of these. I am definitely mostly a fantasy fan, so I tried to not make every single entry fantasy, but that's mostly what I read, so it's mostly what I had to reference. So if you have different reading tastes than me, then I'd love to hear what you would say as somebody who reads a lot of historical or somebody who reads a lot of contemporary or something like that, how our recommendations might differ. So that is going to be it for me this week. Next week is BookNet Fest, which I am going to, so check out my previous video if you want to hear more about that. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I definitely enjoyed making it, so if you did, then give it a like, and if you like my content, do subscribe. I make videos every Friday, and I will see you guys in the next video.